Okay, so, um, we've been talking about this idea of personal potential
Hmm.
and like specifically within our faith.
Mm.
And I think Elder Casillas' recent General Conference address, God Loves All His Children,
Yeah.
really kind of hit on something
Yeah, definitely.
that I know we've both been kind of like thinking about and chewing over.
Absolutely.
And, for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar, General Conference is a pretty big deal.
It's huge.
It's like, I don't know if you want to call it like a spiritual TED Talk or something.
Yeah, kind of like a global broadcast.
It's a big deal, so.
Yeah, and Elder Casillas really just puts it all out there
Right.
right from the beginning
Oh, yeah.
with this whole idea that we were reserved for these times that we're living in,
Right.
which is just such a powerful
It's a
concept.
heavy idea.
Even if you're not like super theological about it, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you think.
Yeah, it's like he's saying we each have a purpose, like there's something we're meant to do.
It's like a built-in mission.
And it's like timed perfectly for right now in history.
Right. Which is kind of a lot of pressure when you think about it.
It can be, but
Yeah.
it's also exciting
Okay. True. True.
because it means we have a part to play in all of this.
That's a good point.
Like we matter.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
So instead of feeling overwhelmed by it,
Yeah.
we can kind of reframe it as like an adventure.
I like that.
Like we're uncovering this purpose that's already there within us.
Okay. So then how do we actually like live that? Because it's one thing to say, oh, I have a purpose.
Right.
But how do you actually make that real in your everyday life?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that Elder Casillas doesn't give us a step-by-step guide.
Which is kind of frustrating when you're looking for answers.
It is, but I also think it's intentional
How so?
because he's not trying to give us all the answers.
Oh, I see.
He's giving us a framework for thinking about our lives.
Okay.
It's like he's saying, look, I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do,
Right.
but I'm going to give you the tools you need to figure it out for yourselves.
I like that.
So instead of just focusing on, our careers or our families,
Mm-hmm.
he wants us to also think about our spiritual growth.
So it's like setting goals, but not just for like the worldly stuff,
Exactly.
but for our souls too.
Yes, and this actually reminds me of that point in Preach My
Oh,
Gospel
yeah.
about avoiding comparison.
Oh, that's such a good point because it's so easy to look around and be like, well, they're doing that and I'm not.
Right. And then we feel inadequate.
Yes, exactly.
But Casillas is saying that's just a distraction.
From finding our own path.
Exactly.
Okay, so no more comparing ourselves to other people.
No, we're comparing.
Got it.
Because we each have our own unique divine assignment.
Okay, there's that phrase again, divine assignment. What does that actually mean, though?
Well, he uses that phrase to emphasize that this purpose we have isn't something we have to earn.
Okay.
It's inherent.
So it's like it's already there inside of us that we just have to kind of like uncover it.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's like we're all born with this inner compass.
Okay.
And it's about learning to trust that compass,
That makes sense.
even if it leads us down a different path than everyone else.
So it's about trusting our gut.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that.
Trust your gut. Trust that inner knowing that tells you what feels truly right for you.
Okay, I can get behind that.
Mhm.
But then how do you actually like find that? Like how do you know what your gut is telling you?
Well, that's where the idea of service comes in.
Okay. Service. How does that play into all of this?
Well, Elder Casillas tells this really powerful story in his address.
Oh yeah, what was it?
It's the one about his visit to that family with the stake president.
Oh, right, with the tears and everything.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so remind me about that story again because I feel like it's important.
So basically, Elder Casillas and the stake president go to visit this family,
Okay.
and they're going through a really tough time.
Like what kind of tough time?
They don't really go into detail,
Okay.
but you can tell it's serious just by the way Elder Casillas talks about it.
Okay, so they go to this family's house.
Right, and they don't try to preach to them or anything like that.
Oh,
They
but-
just show up and offer their support.
So they just like bring food and stuff?
Yeah, they bring food, they help clean up around the house.
Wow.
Just simple acts of service.
That's amazing.
And at the end of the visit, as they're leaving, the stake president hugs the father of the family.
Okay.
And they're both just standing there in the doorway, hugging each other and crying.
Oh man, that's powerful.
And it wasn't about saying the right words or anything like that. It was
No.
just about showing up and being present with them in their pain.
Wow, that's really beautiful.
And it's a great example of how powerful those small acts of service can be.
Because sometimes it's hard to know what to say.
Exactly.
Like, what do you say in a situation like that?
Right. You don't want to say the wrong thing and make it worse.
Yeah, exactly.
So sometimes the best thing you can do is just be there and offer practical help.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do we take that and apply it to our own lives?
That's a great question.
Because, I mean, we're not all stake presidents going around visiting people. So what does that kind of service look like on a daily basis?
Well, I think that's the really cool thing about service.
Yeah.
It's not about having a specific title or anything like that.
Right.
It's just about recognizing those little opportunities in our everyday lives.
To serve others?
Exactly. Like maybe you have a friend who's going through a tough time,
Yeah.
and you just offer to listen to them.
Just be there for them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or maybe you see someone struggling with their groceries, and
Yeah.
you offer to help them carry them.
Yeah, or even just like doing the dishes when it's not your turn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's all about looking for those little ways to make a difference.
I love that. And you know what I think is really cool about all of this is that Elder Casillas makes this point that God wants us to reach our full potential.
Yes.
Like it's not this burden, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, you have to do all these things and be this perfect person.
It's more like an invitation.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I created you with all this amazing potential,
Right.
and I'm so excited to see what you do with it.
Yes. It's like this exciting adventure.
Exactly. And it's not just about checking things off a to-do list either.
Right.
It's about becoming the best versions of ourselves.
So how do we balance that with like the whole success thing?
That's a great question because obviously we want to be successful in our careers and our personal lives.
Yeah.
But Elder Casillas reminds us not to lose sight of our spiritual growth in the process.
So it's not about choosing one or the other.
Exactly. It's about finding that harmony.
Okay. I like that. And that makes me think about his point about witnessing the greatest manifestations of Christ's power through those quiet acts of service.
Oh, yeah.
It's like those small acts create these ripples
They do.
that go out and impact not just the person we're helping, but like the whole world.
It's a chain reaction of kindness.
Exactly. And he specifically mentions helping others stay on the covenant path.
Yes.
Which, you know, for our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with that term,
Right.
it's basically about making and keeping promises with God.
But even if you take away the religious context,
Yeah.
it's still about supporting each other and helping each other stay true to our values.
Yes, exactly. Like, we all need someone in our lives who believes in us,
Absolutely.
especially when we're doubting ourselves,
Especially then.
because that belief can be so powerful, you know.
It can be transformative.
Think about a time when someone really believed in you, like they saw your potential even when you didn't.
It's an incredible feeling, right?
It is. It's like it gives you permission to believe in yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that's what Elder Casillas is getting at when he talks about the adversary's tactics.
Oh, yeah.
You know, trying to discourage us and make us feel small.
Right, because the adversary wants us to stay stuck.
Exactly.
He doesn't want us to reach our full potential.
And so when we believe in others
Mm.
and we support them and encourage them.
We're fighting back against that darkness.
Yes. And we're creating this positive feedback loop.
Exactly. We lift each other up.
I love that. So how do we do that more? How do we cultivate that kind of belief in others? It's like we become these little lights shining in the darkness, right?
Exactly. And you know, it's interesting.
What's that?
Elder Casillas actually talks about that feeling of being uplifted.
Okay.
And he was telling that story about visiting the family.
Oh, you mean how he felt ministered to even though he was the one who was supposed to be, like, doing the ministering?
Exactly. He says that he walked away from that experience feeling inspired and filled with hope.
Wow, so it's like this whole cyclical thing.
It is. It's like that concept of Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
It's this African philosophy about interconnectedness.
Oh, right. Like, I am because we are.
Exactly. It's this beautiful idea that our humanity is bound up in each other.
So when we give to others, we're also giving to ourselves.
Exactly. And, you know, as we're kind of wrapping up our deep dive into Elder Casillas' message,
Yeah.
what's the one thing you hope our listeners really take away from this?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think for me, it's that idea that we all have this divine assignment.
Yes.
Like it's out there waiting for us to discover it.
What if we all woke up every day and asked ourselves, what's my divine assignment today?
Right. Like how would that change the way we interact with the people around us?
Exactly. It's not about having it all figured out.
Because let's be real, who really does?
Exactly. But it's about being open to the journey, you know,
Okay, I love that. Be open to the journey.
and look for those opportunities to serve,
Yeah, even the small ones, right?
especially the small ones, because you never know how those small acts of kindness might ripple out and impact the world around you.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Yes, it is.
But before we go, I just want to say thank you to all of our listeners for joining us today. We hope you found this conversation enriching and thought-provoking.
And remember, keep seeking, keep serving, and keep shining your light.
Beautifully said.
Hmm.
Until next time.